Welcome, lovely people. Today I am not playing on a console and I am not reading a blog provided to us through DC. I don't know how many people are aware or even interested in the fact that I write. I have written stories for other channels. I do a little bit. I am fully aware of the fact that the style in which I write tends not to be anything like comic books. But that being said, the blogs, I feel, are not really like comic books either. I feel like maybe the developers from Star Trek Online were kind of like, oh, you know how we do Captain's Log? Well, let's work out a way to incorporate that into DC. And then they incorporated the blogs. I could be mistaken about that. I still don't like the blogs. I think they are a bad idea. I think every bit of narrative that's presented in the blogs from DC is something that should be provided to us in the game. Give us the story in the game somehow. Just make it part of the narrative of what we're going to do in the gameplay, or at least release the information on the game somewhere where we can read it if you really are committed to keeping it in written form. All of that being said, my least favorite blog that has been released, and that's saying a big thing because I don't like any of them, but blog 3 is my absolute least favorite. I feel like it was something that was trying to trick us. Not something that was revealing something that we were curious about, but rather trying to trick us into thinking the story was about one thing when it was not, and it was in fact about something else. I don't particularly like that, and I also feel like it could have been presented much better in a way that would have enticed me to want to play the newest chapter. So I am doing something today that I have never done on my channel before. I'm not sure if anyone is going to be interested in it or like it, but I thought, well, I'm not going to know unless I try it, am I? So I am going to be reading a blog that I have written if I were the writer of blog 3. Please keep in mind while I'm reading this, if you stay long enough to hear it, that I'm trying to keep in mind what is and is not presented to us in their blog information, what they did and did not want revealed to us through the blogs before the episode release. But at the same time, I also want to make sure people are aware of what the actual storyline is that we're going into and not something else. I will also say that I am doing this as though the narrative that they had in their blog 3 is something that would have been played by us in the game. So that means Voivode and Jack's narrative, where they decide to speak with the Magents, where they are trying to go and deal with Monsieur Mort in the mausoleum. All of that is something that I think should have come up in the game. So what I have written is supposed to give about the same amount of information as we would have received from the blog that they have given us, with the exception of some things I've held back because I would have had it in the game were it me, rather than had it in the blog. And also given a hint about Esperanza and Reckoning instead of completely keeping that close to the chest and kind of tricking our audience. I would like it to be something where people have intrigue. So please keep all that in mind while I read. I have no idea if this is something people are going to enjoy on a predominantly gaming channel, but there's only one way to find out. So here we go. Please do keep in mind my writing style is very, very different from theirs, okay? Oh, also I can't do their accents. No, not even gonna try, it would just fail. Here we go. I stare into my tankard, head heavy as I let the events of the day rotate inside my mind, replaying every action, contemplating the consequences of what we could have done differently. The hum of the patrons barely audible as sorrow and remorse wash over me and seem to linger in a sticky layer on my skin. Jack's elbow sharply hits my ribs to bring my attention back to the present. I look at her downcast face, her expression betraying the anguish we are both feeling. She swirls her drink and asks again, "What are we going to do now?" I look absent-mindedly around the pub for a moment as I consider Jack's question, and begin to realize how many people are looking in my direction, waiting to hear my reply. I force my shoulders to roll back and adjust my posture to sit more upright in an attempt to appear confident. I drink a large gulp of my cocoa, giving myself a moment to arrange my thoughts, wondering what Batman might say in this moment. Then, with as much conviction as I can muster, I say, "The night is darkest before the dawn." I take Jack's hand in mine as we both stand and swig the last drops of our drinks in unison. I look over the small crowd of patrons and declare with assured candor, "We are vengeance." All raise their drinks in half-feigned enthusiasm. It is difficult to be enthusiastic in a moment of mourning such as this. I tip my head to the bartender as Jack and I head towards the exit. Many people lifting their drinks to us on our way past. As we walk through the cold night air, my head spins with frustration as I replay every one of our plans that have all failed to give us the information we need. Who and why? I hear my own voice repeating, "We need to stop this, we need to stop this," until Jack's voice echoes from behind me. "You need to slow down." I stop abruptly as Jack passes and positions herself in front of me, her eyes searching mine for some semblance of a real plan, an idea, something. Her voice breaks through the whistle of the icy wind. "This is getting too big for us to do alone. We need help." I shrug my shoulders and counter, "I want us to do this on our own. Be real superheroes. We can do this, Jack." I watch Jack drop her shoulders, her eyes no longer meeting mine, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. "People are disappearing every day, Voivode. People are dying. People who are super like us. Who are we to think we can stand a chance?" I stand in silence, unable to refute anything she has said, my eyes also dropping to the ground in capitulation. I apprehensively nod once, surrendering to her deduction. We walk side by side for a distance. "We can ask Trenchcoat Guy. He knows about magic things. I'm sure he would help us."
Esperanza.
Her words cut me so deep. Deeper than any other words could, deeper than I thought possible. The expression on her face, one of grief and anger. It is as though I am looking into the eyes of a stranger, so full of hurt and something else, something I barely recognize from her. A devastating desire for power. Like a pervasive aura of darkness surrounding her, coloring her perceptions and manipulating her identity, completely obscuring any hint of who she is, who she was. She is unrecognizable. Everything seems to be moving in slow motion as she looks down, dismissing me as she spits her words with disgust at my presence. Replacing her veil, she turns to walk away, her shoulders slumping forward, her posture betraying her true emotions as she waves her hand in false indifference, hinting at the person she once was. In my state of shock, not a word escapes me. My lips quiver with uncertainty. I cannot think of what I should say before it's too late. But she is gone, leaving behind her destruction, pain, and death. So much needless life lost. The silence breaks with the heart-wrenching wails of a small child. I wipe a tear from my cheek as I turn to walk towards the sound. I see him, cradling his father's limp body in his arms, curled up, crying in the snow. His mother a pile of ash at his feet. Two young girls wearing masks kneel beside him in an attempt to bring him comfort. The anger rolling off both of them in waves, directed at the one responsible, their resolve quite clear from only a glance. Their faces regard me with a confused mixture of skepticism and gratitude, as I too kneel beside the boy. He reaches for me and falls into my arms. I hug him tight, letting him weep uncontrollably into my chest. No one should experience this kind of grief. I nod in admiration to these two would-be heroes as the shock of the situation finally falls away. I look up to the stars scattered across the sky and find the brightest among them. Now, able to speak, I say the only thing I know to say. When all seems lost, hope burns bright. From this high vantage point, I can hear the people of this small city. Many are grieving, their aching sadness permeating through every whispered conversation into a heavy, visceral wave that fills this landscape like a dense cloud of sorrow. How could I have not seen what was happening? How did I not know? I shake my head as hot tears stream down my face, the cold, harsh wind threatening to freeze them to my cheeks. My body shakes with cold and heavy regret, like a weight is on my shoulders that my body is too weak to hold. I cautiously stand, pacing slowly as my feet slip along the sleet, my fingers rubbing my furrowed brow as I consider what must be done. If we are to save everyone from this, everyone, I will need help. One thing is certain. Her day will come. And that's the end. I don't know how to do the gaps and I don't know how to end it. Look, yeah, I went in with their little joke of, day of reckoning, her day will come. I don't know, because that's what they were doing. There are things in this I would not have put in except for the fact that I'm trying to tie in with what they were doing. But yeah, hopefully that's entertaining for people or interesting at least. I think it would have set up the story a lot better because we would have had both Voivode's perspective, including Jack, and we would have had Esperanza's perspective, including both Jack and Voivode, subtly-ish. I mean, we know now it's not subtle, but it potentially would have been without the episode release. Chapter release. And it also talks about a little bit the relationship between Esperanza and Reckoning and her reaction to what's happening, so that we would have had a little bit of intrigue into something that is actually in the game and going to continue on with the storyline instead of us kind of being tricked into thinking one thing instead of another. I don't think it gives too much away. I don't think it's necessary to read this in order to understand the storyline of the game, which is something I would prefer the blogs was something we didn't have to read to understand what's going on. And then I wish what happened in blog 3 was actually part of the gameplay. So this would have preceded the gameplay of them going and speaking to the laughing hound ghost, going into the mausoleum the first time, dealing with Monsieur Mort, coming up with the idea of having Constantine get involved. All of that would have been gameplay after that. Now, I do realize, I'll say again, I do not write like a comic book writer. I certainly don't write in the same style as whoever they have doing their blogs. But if they had to have blogs, I would much rather something that's not trying to trick its audience and is trying to give them a little bit of an intriguing storyline into what is happening. I don't normally write things for superheroes. So that's what I wrote. Now I'm nervous because everything else I have ever written that's been on YouTube is something that I've written for other people's channels. And this is a very different way of presenting things that I've written. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Yeah, hopefully this was at least entertaining. I know it's very different from what I normally do and I completely understand if this is something people aren't interested in, but I thought, you lose 100% of the bets you never take. I think that's the expression, but that was my thought here. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Have a good one, guys.